Major League Soccer is looking for a new commissioner, and they've hired somebody to help them find one. We've got confirmation of what's happening with Tormenta in Georgia, and it's countdown to kickoff for AC Boise today on Morning Kickaround. Yep, that's it. It's me, Jason Davis, all by my lonesome here on Morning Kickaround. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday as we dive into everything that's happening with American soccer. I'm going to admit I'm a little thrown when you get used to something and it's all about two people working through American soccer stories, and then Rob is unable to show up today. He had other commitments. We will charge forward, though. Brad Stith from AC Boise, the man behind the effort to bring soccer to Boise, Idaho, is going to join us on this show. Very excited for that here on Morning Kickaround. We are 10 days away from AC Boise playing their first ever game, and Brad's going to tell us all about the stadium build in Boise. They took what used to be a racetrack, like a horse racetrack, I think, and turned it into their soccer venue. And they've got lots of pretty pictures to share with you from AC Boise today on the show in regards to that. Reminder, this is a show that needs your support. Like, however you want to support us, we will appreciate your support. You can be a Mr. Bob and throw us $10 and support the show that way. Thank you very much to Mr. Bob, who is in New Mexico and repping for Morning Kickaround there. I see some people have gotten their hands on gear. We have a shop. I don't have a picture for you of it right now, but you can find it on the YouTube channel. All the pretty gear, the hoodless sweatshirts, as Rob Kerr is so famous for saying. We have regular T-shirts, also hoodless T-shirts, I was told, is a thing that we have now in the shop. So if you want a T-shirt that doesn't have a hood, Morning Kickaround is where you go for that. You can support the show on Ko-fi or Ko-fi. It's ko-fi/Morning Kickaround. That's a place where you can show your support. I see we got some new people over there doing that. By the way, if you become an Ultra, which is just a membership on the YouTube channel, which costs you a couple bucks a month, you get access to the Discord and the community and all the people building soccer there, which is very fun to be involved with. Very cool that we have this little community that's happening around Morning Kickaround that isn't just about, hey, I like the show and I like what you guys talk about. It's about like getting together and talking about how to make soccer work in your particular part of the country. And if you don't know, we dot the map. And that's the campaign here on Morning Kickaround. We want to dot the map with every new professional soccer club that launches in America. And it's, by the way, that's a hard thing to do as we get into the South Georgia Tormenta story here in a couple seconds. Obviously, it's a tough thing to do to get a professional soccer club off the ground and have longevity in American soccer. But we want to dot the map with that, and we want to dot the map with Ultras. We want to dot the map with members here on Morning Kickaround, people that are supporting the show, showing their faith in American soccer by being part of the Morning Kickaround family. All right, I think that's probably enough of that. We do have, again, Brad Stith from AC Boise coming up later in the show for a countdown to kickoff. AC Boise, 10 days from kickoff for AC Boise. But we've got some other news, so let's kick some long balls on Wednesday. All right, the first long ball here on a Wednesday episode of Morning Kickaround. We're talking Major League Soccer Commissioner Don Garber. Now, here is the best way to set the scene. Don Garber has been MLS Commissioner since 1999. He has overseen nearly every major moment in the trials and tribulations of Major League Soccer. Certainly, there's been growth. Lots of expansion, stadium building, various positive things you can point to during Don Garber's tenure as commissioner. I know there are also some people who will take issue with some of the things that Don Garber has done as commissioner of Major League Soccer, and he becomes the avatar, right? The easy target for anything negative that has happened around Major League Soccer, whether that's how they've handled certain controversial moments, whether that's how they've restricted certain levels of spending. It's certainly the issue of corporatizing soccer in America. Major League Soccer is the devil in that regard for a lot of people who think of soccer as a sport that should be more accessible and not require $500 million investments by billionaires for there to be clubs in these various communities. And obviously, with recent lawsuits, things have come to the fore about Major League Soccer and a potential issue of collusion with U.S. Soccer over control of the American soccer landscape, right? A lot of that stuff I will just put in the big old bucket of late-stage capitalism, and we can leave it over there, right? We'll not talk about the ideologies of that. We're just going to leave that over there. Don Garber, his contract runs to the end of the 2027 season. Now, if you'll recall, we just started the 2026 season, and 2027, there isn't really an end to the season because there is going to be a mini season ahead of a summer break, ahead of the launch of the first ever fall to spring calendar for Major League Soccer from 2027 into 2028. So, Don Garber's going to leave Major League Soccer at some point. Now, it seems pretty clear at the moment that he's going to leave at some point, either in 2027 or at the end of the 2027-28 season after the first campaign under the new calendar. He has signed new contracts, but it seems as though he's finally hit the end of his run or is coming up to the end of his run. So Major League Soccer, per a report by Eben Novy-Williams at Sportico, and then I saw confirmed by my friend Jeff Carlisle today at ESPN, or actually yesterday he filed that piece as well. Major League Soccer owners have tapped Korn Ferry to run their search for a potential new commissioner, according to multiple people familiar with the matter. Now, raise your hand if you'd ever heard of Korn Ferry before I said those words together just now, because I didn't know who they were, right? If this is a firm that is kind of in the business of executive searches and those kind of things, and maybe in sports, I was not aware of them. But this is the firm that has been picked by Major League Soccer to help them find a new commissioner. Now, this is a big moment for MLS. Like, whatever you want to say about Don Garber's leadership, stability at that position has been a positive for MLS since 1999, right? Now, his provenance is NFL, right? He comes from the NFL world, and while it has been tough at times, I think, for Don to fully embrace the world of soccer, and again, his inclinations are not always soccer first. His inclinations are business and MLS first, and that will put him at odds with a lot of soccer fans in America. I think Don Garber has come to a better understanding of how soccer is, I don't know, supposed to work as a judgment, but certainly a more connected way of thinking when it comes to soccer, right? And again, like the traditional ways of doing things from Europe, or how Major League Soccer needs to be fully integrated, more immersed in the world of soccer, and cannot be a business doing soccer unto itself just because it's in the United States and just because he comes from a world where the NFL always acted as, you know, an independent, completely not independent, but a completely on its own sort of unicorn of a sports league. Major League Soccer was never going to be able to do that. And this has been, a process over the course of a couple decades for Don Garber to sort of get more soccer-focused. I'll leave it to you to decide whether he is enough soccer-focused. Here is what the MLS spokesperson said about this process as part of the comprehensive organizational review initiated last year to evaluate MLS's leadership structure, operational effectiveness, and long-term governance. The Board of Governors and Commissioner Garber have retained an executive search firm to support succession planning. This step reflects responsible long-term planning and is aligned with the league's broader evolution. I mean, that is a statement for a sports business website. That is not a statement for soccer fans. It is very corporate in its tone, but I guess that makes sense on some level. Now, here's the bottom line Now, here's the thing that is most important. Like, Corn Ferry can go out into the world and maybe scare up some names we haven't heard before. But there already are some names that, I don't know, a short list is maybe not the right way to think about it, because I'm sure there will be other names we don't know. But I do have a list here of potential candidates. Starting with Charles Altchek, who is the Executive Vice President of Club Performance and League Growth. He's a guy that has been around for a little while in Major League Soccer circles. He is obviously a younger guy than Don Garber, so he might bring something else to the table in that regard. He was elevated to this position of Executive Vice President, Club Performance and League Growth in September of last year. Oh, man. Todd on Sports, I don't want to know if that's... You probably can, Todd. I don't want to. He's asking, Todd is asking if you can bet on the next commissioner on Polymarket. It's a good question with MLS having a partnership with Polymarket now that we discussed, I think last week. So I'm going to read you a bio. All right, this is a bio from the Major League Soccer website, so take whatever grains of salt you want with it. Altchek, one of the candidates on the shortlist, brings more than a decade of experience at MLS. Remember, this is when he was elevated to an executive vice president position back in September of last year, including his most recent position as president of MLS Next Pro. He had been in that position for a little while. He talked about the launch of MLS Next Pro. They mentioned that in this bio. He has been a guy over the last decade that has grown in his role as a leadership figure in MLS, according to Don Garber. Okay, so Charles Altchek is on this list. JT Batson, CEO of U.S. Soccer, is also apparently on somebody's list. I mean, he would make sense as sort of the executive corporate type that may be attractive to the MLS ownership. Now, I think you have to be immersed in things like the budget of U.S. Soccer and some of the partnerships and various partnerships that it's been involved with, but various corporate elements of U.S. Soccer's business to fully evaluate JT Batson, right? I've never come away thinking, oh, JT Batson, this is a dynamic individual that I think would be great to do some other role, right? As U.S. Soccer's CEO, I suppose he's been fine, but I'm sure you can find plenty of opinion about how he has maybe not done the job that is necessary. And that's a tricky spot, U.S. Soccer, right? Because you have a constituency that is often at odds with itself. Dan Beckerman, President, CEO of AEG, owners of the LA Galaxy, major investors in MLS from the very beginning. A guy I think had spent some time in a number of different places across American soccer, Dan Beckerman. Larry Berg, co-managing owner, LAFC. A guy who has been kind of at the forefront of pushing MLS into a modern era with LAFC and some of the things that they have done. Ivan Gazidis, president of Kilmer Sports Ventures, which I didn't realize that's where Ivan Gazidis was these days. Ivan Gazidis was at Arsenal. Ivan Gazidis was also at Major League Soccer. He was, back then, the beginning of MLS, a part of the founding management team. He was deputy commissioner under Garber in 2001. He then went to Arsenal, where he was chief executive for a while. He went to AC Milan in 2018. He ended up moving into this role with Kilmer Sports Ventures. I guess he is also part of the ownership, or that group owns Saint Etienne in France. There's some other things that they're involved in. Ivan Gazidis is an interesting figure, right? I'm not sure. He hasn't been in American soccer in a while, as far as I know, but he does have some familiarity. MLS has changed dramatically. Dan Helfrich, principal of Deloitte Consulting. I don't know Dan Helfrich, but Deloitte is not a name I would want associated with MLS at the leadership level. Peter O'Reilly, Executive Vice President, Club Business, International, and League Events, NFL. They go back to that well, which is where Don Garber came from. Christian Seifert, former CEO of the Bundesliga, is on a list. Mark Tatum, Deputy Commissioner of the NBA, is also on the list. And then Anastasia Danius Schmidt, Executive Vice President, Chief Legal Officer, MLS, is apparently on the list. Some of these people I'm not familiar enough with to make comment about. They just are who they are. All right. So Don Garber leaving. A firm has been contracted to find his replacement. We'll see what direction that goes in. Big moment for Major League Soccer because I think you can do a lot worse than Don Garber. For even if you don't like him, this is an opinion from Riverside Grove that I think some people hold across Major League Soccer, American soccer even. MLS and American soccer in general is at least 15 years behind where it could be, in large part due to Garber and his NFL and monopoly obsession. Now, that's a very difficult thing to prove, Riverside Grove. If you have some sort of further argument, I'm sure the people in the Discord and Ultras would love to hear it. I would certainly love to hear it because you're going to have to convince me. I'm not going to just buy that hook, line, and sinker. All right, that's the first long ball. When we come back, let's do another one. Let's catch you up on what's going on with South Georgia Tormenta. All right, here we go. An update on South Georgia Tormenta, a story we told you on Monday that the USL League One club reportedly was shuttering for 2026. We now have confirmation. I start here with the 2-sentence statement on the USL website about South Georgia Tormenta. I'll read it in its entirety. South Georgia Tormenta will not compete in the USL League One season in 2026. Tormenta FC has been part of USL League One since its inaugural season and has played an important role in the league's growth, including winning the League One title in 2022. That is it from the USL. Now, Tormenta themselves confirmed their departure from the league, at least for the moment. And again, really hard to imagine that there is a way back to professional soccer if this is the situation. We told you on Monday they averaged something like 500 fans per match. That happened in 2025. They had a very low attendance numbers in 2024. Whatever it was they thought made Statesboro, Georgia, home of Georgia Southern University. I want to make sure I have that right. I think that's right. I'm getting a nod from producer Jenny. She knows. A college town. Whatever they thought made that market a good place for professional soccer, clearly the bottom has fallen out and they were very wrong. Or, and obviously this is a possibility as well, they failed to market it properly and that was a major reason for this. Now, I do think this is interesting, and this is not something we talked about on Monday, but this is interesting in light of the fact that a lot of these summer teams, the high amateur teams that are having success in the stands, the teams that are under the umbrella of, say, Michael Hitchcock and some of these other efforts to bring a soccer club identity to a town, those have succeeded in a lot of places that are college towns, right? This notion that there is sort of a built-in community of people who might be inclined to like sports and might be inclined to come out and support a soccer team in the summer when there's no college sports going on. And, oh, look, Annapolis got 12,000 in the home of Navy. And we've got some other college towns that aren't coming to mind right now, but have done well in that regard. Maybe we can change them into soccer towns or make them into soccer towns. And then if you get 12,000 out in a summer league, why not go pro? South Georgia Tormenta, although every situation is slightly different and every market is different, is an example of why that might not always be a great idea. Here's their statement. After careful evaluation and consideration, South Georgia Tormenta FC announced today that our professional team will not compete in the 2026 League One season. Over the past several years, Tormenta FC has grown alongside our community and reached meaningful milestones on and off the field, including bringing Statesboro its first professional championship in 2022. We are proud of what has been built together across South Georgia. While the professional team will not compete in 2026, Tormenta FC's youth and academy programs will continue to serve players and families throughout the region. The club remains committed to supporting the growth of the game at the local level. We are deeply grateful for the unwavering support of our fans, partners, players, and the entire Tormenta FC community. We will share additional information about the club's professional team at a later date. Now, again, I guess there's no "we're definitely dead, we're not coming back" statement here. They're leaving open the possibility that they get back on the field at some point in the future, but I find that very difficult to imagine. The timing of this is the most ridiculous part. that it took us until 2 weeks before the launch of the League One season for this to come to a head and for us to see Tormenta FC say we can't play. And I do think this is ultimately, on some level, dereliction of duty on the part of USL. Now, how far you blame USL, that is a matter of how much responsibility you think USL has in propping up any team that might have trouble to keep them going when these things happen. Some sort of safety net. Remember, there is no revenue sharing with clubs in the USL. The clubs are on their own from an economic perspective. They do not get the help of anybody else. And that will always beget these kinds of situations. Right? That will always create situations where if a club gets just a little tilted in the finances, can't get insurance, which seems to be the case for South Georgia Tormenta, and we have further details on that there is nobody who's going to come in and say, well, here's some money for you to keep you going. Or not even that. Obviously, as a last-ditch attempt to save a club, the USL may write a check. In fact, we here at Morning Kickaround have heard, even before teams have hit the field, there have been situations that have necessitated USL stepping in and covering payroll for club employees in order to keep the operation going as they find a solution for a bigger problem that might come out of a financial issue or an ownership that does not materialize in the way that USL believed it should. Now, some of this comes down to vetting. Right? Some of this comes down to what is USL's responsibility? What are they doing? Are they doing enough to make sure that they've got all the ducks in a row for a professional team to launch in any given place? Is the ownership committed? Do they have the resources to fund the club when times are dark, when there are issues with maybe selling tickets when the revenues aren't coming in? And in general, it's important to remember that professional soccer clubs are almost always money-losing enterprises, certainly in the beginning of their lives. Now, South Georgia Tormenta goes back now as a decade as a presence in Statesboro, but slightly less than that as a professional team. After we had the two-sentence USL statement, and after we had this statement from Tormenta itself, we have this from the USLPA, who made sure to jump in. There's a lot in here. They mention that the players had arrived to begin preseason training in Statesboro on January 20th, that they did medical evaluations. They signed leases. They relocated families. International players entered the country on work visas, but training never began. That because of the unresolved financial instability, the ownership was unable to maintain workers' comp coverage. That's required under the CBA. That's a fundamental workplace protection in a high-risk profession. Remember, there is no universal health care, or there's no league health care. The clubs are not required to deliver health care as part of the CBA right now. This is what they are negotiating, this USLPA and USL management. Right? Individual businesses all doing their own things. So if you don't have health care, which I'm assuming was the situation in Georgia, but I don't know for sure, you figure it would be, you better have workers' comp. And that was not available because the team could not cover that. Without coverage, players could not legally or safely participate in formal training. They mentioned that for a month, the players were preparing for a season, but they weren't able to train with the coaching staff. There was no preparation for the season. And then on the 20th, just 2 weeks before the start of the season, the USLPA was informed that Tormenta would not participate this season. In the aftermath of that, the USLPA proposed a structured transition solution to protect players. Under that plan, players were afforded the opportunity to have their contracts fully honored in other places. League headquarters shared their support for this approach, subject only approval by other League One clubs. The USLPA was told the players could begin navigating that player market under that structure. Then, less than 24 hours later, the clubs rejected the plan, other USL League One clubs, asserting that the responsibility did not rest with them. And again, you could obviously say that is horrible on the part of the other League One clubs. But because of the nature of the financial structures at this level of the game, it's kind of hard for me to come down too hard on those clubs to carry that financial responsibility when ultimately it's down to Tormenta had dropped the ball, right? It sucks for the players. It's I don't know how far that's supposed to go. And again, maybe this is something that needs to be negotiated in the CBA in order to protect the players in a future scenario like this. Maybe the USL needs to do better with the safety net. Maybe there does need to be some financial support beyond the last-ditch, last-minute kind of thing USL might provide. USLPA saying that league headquarters withdrew their support for the proposed transition structure, which I imagine was this draft we heard rumors about that ultimately did not come to pass. Then players who have already endured weeks of financial uncertainty are now left scrambling for employment, housing stability, and in some cases, immigration security. If you don't have a job, your visa is in jeopardy. And if there's no club to pay you and no club to sponsor you, that's a problem for international players. USLPA paints this as a governance failure. The USL's franchise model centralizes expansion, controls territorial rights, and captures the commercial upside of growth at the league level. The league owns the brand, sells the vision of stability and professionalism. However, the league model does not ensure due diligence, proper corporate governance and stability, and creates an environment where the club can fail to meet the most basic employment obligations without the league providing a proper financial backstop. Risk is pushed downward. Accountability is optional. Players are left exposed. This is the USLPA utilizing this moment to drive home some points that they want to make about the way that USL is structured. And maybe I'm threading a needle here, and Morning Kickaround is all about dotting the map. Morning Kickaround is all about spreading the gospel of this game from sea to shining sea. And I want to see more clubs pop up because more clubs mean more fans, mean more players, mean more opportunity for soccer's growth to truly reach its full potential in America. But there absolutely is a question of inception here, of origin, of how you launch that thing, how you make that work. And if it is all built on a house of cards, or if there is a league structure, as outlined here by the USLPA, that ultimately means instability is too big a part of the system, well, then we get into real questions of whether it's the right thing to do to keep doing it this way. That is all I'll say about that. So the USLPA, not happy. Obviously, players without a job. A shutdown of a club is never a good thing. I wrote more about this on my newsletter, which you can find by looking for Jason Davis Soccer Eagle in your Google machine or your search engine of choice. You should be able to find it. It's over on Ghost. It's one of the many newsletters in American soccer that are now part of that Ghost family. Stuff like Matt Doyle with Tactics Free Soccer. We've got, or Tactics Free Zone, excuse me. A bunch of other independent outlets covering MLS and other leagues are on Ghost. My guy Jason Anderson just launched a Ghost newsletter coverage of DC United and the Washington Spirit. So support Jason Anderson as well. Support us here on Morning Kickaround. You can drop us a little coin on ko-fi.com/Morning Kickaround. You can become a member of the channel right here. I see we have a new member. Let me highlight our friend Ralph. What's up, Ralph? Welcome to the show. Welcome to the family. We'll get you the Discord link in a post on the YouTube channel shortly. If anybody else needs the Discord link, let me know. Doing the show by myself means it's tougher to monitor the chat while I'm doing all this stuff, but I do want to acknowledge everybody who's in here today, who's throwing out some thoughts as we get ready for Countdown to Kickoff with AC Boise in just a couple of minutes. Armando saying the South Georgia Tormenta fiasco is why MLS doesn't have to worry about the USL. You know, and that's an interesting framing, this whole thing about whether or not there is some sort of soccer war either ongoing or coming between USL and MLS. Obviously, MLS has kind of been through a thing with the NASL. The NASL challenged Major League Soccer and U.S. Soccer in court. We know ultimately that did not go the way they wanted it to go. And the patron of that lawsuit, Rocco Comiso, is now no longer with us. So you wonder if there will be any pressure on Major League Soccer that way. Going back to Don Garber, with Garber leaving and the influx of more aggressive owners, I wonder if you will see a much less conservative commissioner. That's interesting, although I will point out, because The Athletic just dropped their annual GM survey, and you take stock of some things. There are lots of clubs who haven't filled all their DP slots or haven't exercised all the mechanisms that are available to them to build out their squads in Major League Soccer. So it's not as though there are some aggressive owners. Jorge Mas is obviously the lead figure in that regard. But there are also owners who seem not to be willing to put their money down to fully flesh out what they could be in Major League Soccer. So we shall see. All right, I see our guest has arrived. We are very, very close to the debut of AC Boise in USL League One. When we come back here on Morning Kickaround, it's time for Countdown to Kickoff. AC Boise with Brad Stith. Here we go. It's Countdown to Kickoff. Brad Stith from AC Boise. It said 10 days before kickoff. Brad, you're getting down. Two hands, you can count the number of days until you play a competitive soccer match. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's not too bad. You get to 10 more sleeps and it feels pretty good, right? So, things are great, and we're just excited to get the season kicked off.
Now that debut happens in Florida in Sarasota, so you're playing away. Then you got Union Omaha on March 22nd. You don't open up your building and welcome in the community of Boise until April 4th at the brand new stadium. And that's why we're here today, to kind of talk about the process of putting together a proper soccer venue. I know we have touched on it in your appearances here on the show, but you guys sent me, a billion images of the stadium now, and it looks good. I'll say that, Brad. Tell me about what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more going on since we sent that even. So we've got another 800 club seats that are going actually on that northeast end that you saw. There was nothing next to the press box. So right there. So on that left-hand side of the press box, we've got a full club seat section going in. On the right-hand side, we have a 1,000-person beer garden. So it's pretty epic. So the stadium, when we'll actually open up on April 4th, will be completely contiguous all the way around, right? So you've got those north end field suites that you can see on the left part of the screen. So they, the first row of those field suites are actually on the field board. So they're 12 feet off the goal line. So they're just an awesome field suite experience for everybody. And as you can see with the view in Boise, that's taken from the West Side club seats in the main grandstand. Pretty awesome view of the foothills, pretty awesome view of what Boise is. So it's, with the newly refurbished grandstand that's completely covered, the new 1,400 club seats that we put in on the West Side, you've got 240 VIP pitch side seats, our supporter sections, definitely one of the best in the USL. If you haven't seen it, it's literally 36-inch bays, proper rail system, 24-inch rise over run. So it's a great supporter wall. And the rest of the scoreboard's actually going in right now. So, we're 5.5 weeks out from actually opening up. But for April 4th, obviously, lots to do in that amount of time. But we'll be at 99% completion on March 15th. So we're looking forward to getting this thing rolling.
Yeah, just kind of rolling through the many images that you sent us here. Here, obviously, some of those seats in the grandstand that I think you were talking about. Some of this, there's obviously, this is one of those things where, when people think of stadium building, typically, I think it's natural, you go to the highest level of that, right? An NFL stadium, some sort of massive, completely enclosed, all the concourses and all those elements. And that's not what you're building, but you're building something to service all the same elements a stadium like that would service. So, you've had to kind of piece this together, right? Where do these ideas come from? How do you get to a place of this is how we tackle this particular part of what we want our experience to be in Boise?
Yeah, I think that from the onset, it really came down to, do we have the right mix for our season ticket holders that are affordable? And so 65 to 70%, actually right at 70% of our entire stadium for season ticket holders, it's $30 or less. At the same time, you've got the premium side on premium seating, that do we have what we need to service the business community so they can use their tickets to drive client relationships and really reward their top employees and make that something that's a true corporate asset for them because it's a community asset. And so by putting in the club seats, by putting in the field suites, the turf club, which you're actually seeing right now, has 48 loge boxes in it. And then the grandstand has 48 loge boxes in it. So we have 96 loge boxes, which for a stadium of this size is unheard of, right? And so, our seating capacity seated is going to be right at 7,200. I think with standing room will eclipse 8,000. So that's the size of stadium you're talking about. But really, as you build the entire thing out, you want to make sure that both your community partners and your corporate partners have assets that are meaningful to them, that they know, that can help them. I mean, on the fan side, like, we are a memory maker, right? And we are, if you think about every pro and college game that you've gone to in your entire life, 99% of those have been with the people that you love most, right? And so I don't think we want to step away from the fact that, we're truly a memory maker. So how do we make the fan experience the best it possibly can be in game? And quite frankly, driveway to driveway, that's always, our focus. And then on the corporate side, it's the same thing. It's like, how do you really create relationships with your employees and with your clients that drive business forward? Because really those businesses are driving the community forward, right? So it's a good balance between the two, and we were fortunate enough to have the balance to make that happen.
Well, so I have a question in the chat, and you used a term that I think is pretty standard in stadiums, but maybe not everybody's aware of. Can you describe what a loge box is?
Yeah, so a loge box is effectively a mini suite, right? So in the turf club, they're 4-seat boxes, that full table service, full restaurant. It's a very, very high-end luxury sports bar with the turf club. In our grandstands, they're all 6-seat loge boxes. So just think about 48 small mini suites that are all 6-seaters, but they have full service, full F&B service, full everything else. Our club seats actually have in-seat drink service all the way across the board. So the way that our system from a service standpoint is set up, if you're looking at fan experience, like, we have a QR code on every single club seat, every single loge box, the suites, where you scan in, you're like, yep, I'm in section 1, row A, seat 1, and in 90 seconds, you'll have a drink delivered. So it's one of those things that we wanted to make sure the fan experience is truly like the top of professional when you're looking at the United States and what club experiences are like. But to get back to your question, a loge box is a mini suite.
Yeah, there you go. That's the best way to think about it. Yeah.
Yep.
Look, obviously in this situation, like, sightlines, not an issue, but how did you guys think about what the viewing experience of great to have drinks in 90 seconds. I want to watch the game. I want to be able to see the game in a way that helps me understand what's happening and obviously gives me a chance as a fan to respond to the action on the field.
Well, and I think that's why the in-seat service component is so critical, because you don't have people walking in front of you. You don't have people leaving your seats, so people are more engaged with the game. And for football, as we all know, like, you don't want to leave your seat, because if you leave your seat, you're going to lose 5 to 10 minutes of game time, right? Where you're just not going to be engaged. And so I think from that standpoint, it was really important that the service side met what I consider as a fan requirement for football, that I don't have to leave my seat for the first half. I definitely don't have to leave my seat for the second half and extra time, right? So it keeps me engaged. And so I think from a sideline standpoint, you can see that, like, our grandstand is it's no horse track, right? So repurposing that, redeveloping that. I've traveled all over. It's all metal and concrete, and it is exceptionally loud. So you can imagine how much sound just hovers over that. But because of that, it creates an experience that I think is going to be really unique in U.S. soccer.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the sound, actually, because obviously there are limitations to how enclosed your stadium situation can be. The grandstand obviously is going to be a reflector of sound and loud and look great. But in terms of how that connects with your supporters, who are obviously behind
Right.
the goal in that end, I'm trying to find more. There, you
Right
can see
there.
that.
Yep.
So I'm in the grandstand. How much am I going to be able to hear and interact with the supporters and vice versa?
It's a lot, and we've actually tested it. We've had our supporters actually come out and test what the drum's like compared to where the grandstand is. I mean, the grandstand gets exceptionally loud, but I think what you're going to see is our supporter section leading a lot of the grandstand chants and cheers, where it becomes an entire stadium experience, right? But it might look far away. I mean, you're 55 yards away where that supporter section is compared to where the grandstand is, and so you definitely can hear the supporter section even with a full grandstand. And I think that our supporter section is exceptionally passionate. In that section, they're effectively, I think we've got 80 tickets left out of the 480 that are actually in the supporter section that haven't been sold on a season ticket basis, because we wanted some of those available for single games. And I think that they're well organized, and they're really going to be able to create a stadium atmosphere that's unique to Boise and unique to the Treasure Valley, but is definitely driving. You've got a lot of like Seattle Sounders and Portland Timbers transplants, and if anybody knows about those two supporters across the country, like they're second to none, right? I mean, there are very few supporter units in U.S. pro soccer that activate like that. And so I think because of that, this isn't their first rodeo on how to create that stadium experience and engage the entire fan base while they do it.
Now, Brad, you mentioned about 8,000 in this building to launch. You haven't played a game yet. You haven't hosted a competitive match yet. But people are already going to be asking, okay, how do you add seats? Like, how do you get this place big? So I'm sure you don't want to get ahead of yourself, and you've got to do this first. You got to walk before you can run. But people are going to ask, if you're going to have that much success in the beginning, how do you capitalize on it in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at that east side, it tells you where we're where the expansion piece is. The most beautiful part about our stadium project and our partnership with Ada County is that we've got 32 acres in this complex, right? So we built the stadium apron to actually go to 25,000 seats. So instead of being handcuffed where we're walking into a footprint where, you can build to 8,000 and that's what our max is, we actually built it to, go into the future. And, the initial lease is 30 years, but it's perpetual 5 years after that, right? So we have it way into the future. And so I think for our, knowing the growth of Boise, knowing the market, knowing that we really wanted to be able to create something that was meaningful and pragmatic our first year, but having the ability to seize opportunity if we need to expand, we've got the apron to do that. And we've got the infrastructure to do that.
So something else you guys sent over for us was some stuff on signage. Now, this is pretty nerdy stuff, I imagine. Like, this gets really into, what's the best way to label things. Obviously, you're making these choices. I was thinking about just how granular this is. I imagine you've been involved in these discussions, Brad. So just give us a little insight into that part of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's part of the fan experience, right? And especially for key partners. And I know you had some of the Sweet Holder stuff on there, and that looked like it was a iteration from a while ago, because they're pretty dimed up on the Field Suite side. But I think as you're just creating the fan experience, it's like, how do you communicate well? How do you brand well? What's the balance between, what we're branding from a team standpoint and then integrating our partners? And I think that our marketing teams just have done a phenomenal job of actually partner integration. So you definitely have team assets that you're seeing through these as you go through these photos. But, you've got, those actually Athletic Club goes up on Monday. So that'll be an awesome site. It just happened to be that in the grandstand, it was exactly Athletic Club with the Falcon in the middle. I mean, it was exactly the panels. So somebody was telling me that Athletic Club was clearly the right name for this club, right, when we walked into the stadium. But I think that, as you're driving the signage piece, it really comes down to fan experience and creating a pro environment that doesn't seem overbuilt or over dramatized, but you've got key assets that are poignant and important, and I think really meaningful to the community, because we've done some things that are really at the heart of Boise from a branding perspective.
I don't know what we're looking at here. This is a designer clearly working on some signage that changes from the angle that you're seeing that. So I love the insight. I mean, I might not understand everything, but I do appreciate the insight. So again, yeah, 10 days until kickoff down in Sarasota. How many days until you open the building? You said 5 weeks until you get that first league game.
Yeah, so it's April 4th, right? So 5.5 weeks. But we've got, I think that, like I said, March 15th, we're at 99% completion. Haven't announced it yet, but we're actually going to have a season ticket fan fest. So I guess I'm announcing it right now on March 28th.
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, love to have the drop morning Kickaround. So that'll come out over the next few weeks, and that'll be a great time to engage our entire season ticket base and let them have a first look at the stadium prior to opening on April 4th. But I think that for us, it's really about, galvanizing this community and the momentum. I mean, how big the momentum's been, where season ticket sales are, where I think our partnerships have come in, and, Boise and the entire Treasure Valley and the state of Idaho can be more excited to have pro soccer here finally. And they've demonstrated that, right? I mean, you just don't come out of the gate with this kind of momentum. The ability to hire a head coach like Nate Miller, and I know you spent some time with him. Nate's an exceptional head coach, has a great coaching staff, really able to recruit the players that we brought in, because guys, I mean, quite frankly, they took a lot less money to come to Boise because they wanted to be part of this from the ground up. They wanted to play in a sold out stadium. They wanted to, be part of a club that they knew was going to take care of them from at a really high, exceptional level. I think signing Blake Bodley, kind of set the tone, because Blake's the best player ever to come out of Idaho, but obviously, was in the timber system since he was 15 in Portland. He literally moved from Boise to Portland when he was 15, right? So when you're able to bring in that kind of talent, and then you start seeing everybody else the coach was able to bring in and put together, those guys are just not great players, but they've got a really high level of character that translates to who we are in Boise and our fan base and our corporate base. And I think that as you're able to do that, just keeping things steady and simple and not being flashy, but being true to who we are is important.
Brad, so I guess I'll just finish with this. I mean, you mentioned the Fan Fest for the season ticket holders. That's incredible to hear about already, or to have you drop that on the show. I guess, I'm sure you've been knee deep in detail, right? You're at the point where this is like the finishing work if you're building a house. So you're picking out, the fixtures. You're trying to figure out what colors are going up on the walls and stuff. What is the thing that you are like? What do you think about, if it's not the detail stuff? What is the thing that most excites you right now about where this club is and what it can be? And give me your real true sense of how confident you are that everything goes the way you want it to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty confident. So the real true sense is that we've got an exceptional team, and that's what I'm confident in, right? It's not about me. It's about the fact that I've hired just a fantastic team. And as we made those hires, they brought in other people. So it starts with your staff, it starts with your coaching staff, but your front office staff that's making everything happen. We onboarded 7 people on Monday, right? That are all stadium side. And so top tier head of security, brought over the number 2 facilities operator from Levi Stadium that just ran the Super Bowl, and she joined us on Monday to run the stadium side. So when you're looking at building that, it comes down to your people. So one, I'm super confident in who we brought in, that they're able to keep our standard and keep raising the bar and meet the expectations that we have. I think that, you're literally people say this all the time, but you are building the plane while flying it, right? Yeah. And so you have to be, at least I have to be at a 30,000 foot level where I understand where we're going 6 months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now. And I think anybody that says you're looking past 3 years, that just becomes, visionary, and that's okay. But there are certain things that you have to plan for and make sure we're in concert. And at the same time, you've got to be able to flip a switch and get to ground level and execute at a super high level. And I think for our organization and our club, it's the fact that we over communicate on everything so things don't get lost. I think that when you're moving this fast and you're building a stadium, scaling a front office. Sorry about that.
You're a busy guy.
Yeah, all good. It's I think as you're, really doing all those things at the same time, it really becomes dependent on your people, right? And the fact that you've got to trust that everybody's got a swim lane, everybody's executing at a super high level, they're accountable to that high level, and that together, because we're rowing the boat in the same direction, we're able to get this to where it needs to be by April 4th.
There it is, Brad Stith, 10 days before their first game, 5 weeks before they open up their stadium in Boise and bring pro soccer truly to Boise, Idaho. Brad, it's been a great journey. I'm imagine we might squeeze another one of these in at some point. Maybe we'll have to actually talk to you after the event there, obviously in April, but also maybe where your team is. And I'm sure we'll check in with your football side as well. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, absolutely. I'm just looking forward to getting you out here so you can see it live. So, allegedly, I think that you've got the open invite, not just for me, but I don't know your sister. So maybe we should just get out here and do a little something.
Does my sister like me right now is a good question to ask on Morning Kick. No, I'm good with my sister. Thank you very much, Brad. Yeah, I'm sure she would love to see me. I'm coming out for you, sis. I'm totally coming out to see you. Yeah, that's the only reason I'm in Boise is to check in on you. I definitely want to get out. Brad, thank you so much for being part of Countdown to Kickoff on Morning Kickaround. All right, there goes Brad Stith. Really good stuff on Morning Kickaround here. I think we catch our breath very briefly, and when we come back, we'll hit some of the comments and see what you guys are talking about here on today's show. All right, back on Morning Kickaround as we finish up this Robless episode. I guess this is a Robless episode, just like a hoodless sweatshirt is available in our store on the YouTube channel. Go find the store, find what you like. I believe there are many color options. If you're like, I don't like it on that color, well, then find the logo and the name of the show and everything else on a different colored shirt or sweatshirt or hoodless sweatshirt or whatever is to your liking. Thank you to Brad Stith for coming by. I hope you guys have enjoyed Countdown to Kickoff. I mean, that was a concept we kind of put together sort of not the last minute, but just in time to really start to dig into some of what these clubs are doing as they get ready to launch. And, I think in light of what's going on in Georgia with South Georgia Tormenta and them pulling out of the 2026 season and potentially the end of professional soccer in Statesboro, Georgia, like getting background and hearing from Brad Stith. And look, of course, Brad Stith and AC Boise and Eric Stover and the New York Cosmos and Sam Morton and Atletico Dallas are all going to present a rosy picture of what they're doing as they get ready to launch their teams. They're not going to come on and do Countdown to Kickoff with us and say, oh, well, we actually don't know if this thing is going to work. Like, this might not last 5 years. Of course not. And there is a matter of an element of faith in this. Like everybody, the fans, the people launching the club, the local businesses who are getting involved in a club, we're all taking a leap of faith. American soccer is a leap of faith. I think that is very obvious. And if you've been around for more than 5 minutes, you have to understand that you have to have a big appetite for failure, for mistakes, for things not working out in order for us to move forward. American soccer is absolutely 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We have never been able as a soccer culture to just move forward without any regression whatsoever. It has been a major feature of our experience for 50 years. I mean, you go back to the NASL days. I know we have a deeper history than that, and you could argue about the ASL and some of the other things that happened during that era of American soccer. But certainly in the more modern era, let's call it the television era of American soccer, we've had Oh, an incredible league with incredible stars. Hey, did you know George Best was playing in America? Pelé came and Johan Cruyff came. All these people came to play in America, and then what ended up happening? The whole thing collapsed because some of the people who were involved were not operating in good faith. Some of those people were just looking for a quick payday. Some of those people were selling things they couldn't actually deliver. We didn't have a structure. We didn't have a pure foundation in place. Obviously, in 94, we get the World Cup, launching a first division league. Major League Soccer launches as a very conservative enterprise meant to control costs just about as much control as they could maintain. Right, and here we are 30 years later, 31st season. Have they moved quickly enough? Or have they always been a little too conservative? Right, those things. But I think at the same time, and you can go back to 2001. We could talk about the Florida teams being shuttered. We can talk about Chivas USA. MLS has not had their own black eyes. They have tried to be as careful as possible. It's why the big money is such a feature of MLS. The more money you have behind a club, the less likely they are to fold. That's just a bottom line thing. If you got a billionaire involved, he's going to have an appetite to lose more money than somebody who doesn't have $1 billion. And so you kind of take the good with the bad in that regard. At least some MLS has decided to do that. But obviously there are lots of places that aren't going to support an MLS team. MLS can only be so big. There are only so many billionaires willing to invest in MLS, in American soccer. So you need a second tier and a third tier. I don't mean like in terms of league. I mean in terms of investment, in terms of market size, in terms of the ambition involved. And the ambition in Boise is not to build a 75,000-seat stadium. It's not even to build a 30,000-seat stadium, totally enclosed, modern amenities, all the fancy elements, roofed everywhere. That's not their plan right now. Right? Their plan is we're going to build an 8,000-seat venue with a repurposed grandstand from a horse track and some shipping container suites and a couple of other elements, and we're going to turn that into a stadium that works for us. And then, if that works, we can always imagine things going in a different direction. We can build bigger one day. All right, as I get ready to wrap up the show, thank you so much to all the Ultras. Thank you to everybody who participated in today's program. I see Riverside Grove wants to make the trip to Boise to see a game. John is saying, yeah, Robless, bless Rob. Rob is indisposed today. Last night's CONCACAF Champions Cup didn't get bumped for college hoops, so that was a win. We had a couple of not dead rubbers, but matchups that were pretty much decided in the first leg last night. Nashville beat Atletico Ottawa 5-0 in Nashville, and I believe ended up winning 7-0 on aggregate against the Canadian side. And LAFC, they were already up 6-1 from their trip down to Real España in Honduras, so they get a 1-0 victory and win 7-1 on aggregate, so they will advance. I know we've got CONCACAF Champions Cup coming up tonight. LAFC advances to face off against Alajuelense of Costa Rica, and Nashville will get Miami. So those two teams who know each other very well will face off against one another. So shout out to the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Bill are you picking up a hoodless sweatshirt, Bill? By the way, if you got those, post pictures of them in the Discord if you're an Ultra and you got one. And we want to throw those up and see them in real life. Shout out to Mr. Bob again. See you, Mr. Bob. Mr. Bob is also a newsletter subscriber. I just saw that happen during the show. Jason Davis, Soccer Eagle, if you want my scribblings, or so to speak. Homeless Shoe. I've got faith of the heart. No one's going to bend or break me. Is that a lyrical situation, Homeless Shoe? I feel like that's probably lyrics from something. Bob again, USL with all its faults helps grow and show the potential of grassroots community-based American soccer. And this is what's odd about this moment, right? So we talked about Tormenta shuttering its doors. USLPA very strident in its criticism of USL and the lack of institutional support, right? And the fact that the way USL operates means all the risk goes to the clubs, and USL as a league enterprise avoids that while raking in the money from expansion fees and anything else. So we now have this dynamic where the individual clubs like Mr. Bob's New Mexico United, clubs like AC Boise in the USL League One in 2026, clubs across the country that are participating in USL leagues are almost kind of the avatars of the future of American soccer from a grassroots level, in spite of what USL is, or maybe it's even heightened because of what USL is. Like, maybe they don't have any choice. Who's organizing a national league for these teams to participate in? Who's giving them an opportunity to sort of buy into a structure that allows them to operate as professional clubs? Really nobody but USL. But you take the good with the bad with USL. So John is saying USL is allowing organic grassroots soccer to flourish. And the USLPA would say, well, yeah, but that puts the players at risk. And these teams, as financial enterprises, are always going to be teetering on the edge of insolvency. And that might not be good for American soccer in the whole. But maybe, again, you kind of got to accept that part of it. You got to accept that this is just the way forward here. Because, again, the bar is low enough for people who want to launch a club in Boise, Idaho, or Sarasota, Florida, or wherever else to enter professional soccer without it being a closed shop where you got to have $1 billion. Because I don't think anybody wants that. Nobody should want it only to be this billionaire's club. American soccer can't be that if it's going to grow. Let's see. Any news on an MK jersey? You know what, Armando? It's interesting you mentioned that. I just saw that I had an email that came in from our guy, Mark Jenkinson, who is helping us design the jersey for Morning Kickaround. I think we're waiting on some information from Mark. He may be waiting on some information from us. Maybe it's a difference of communication, but we have talked about the jerseys. We showed you those on the Kickathon. I think we'll post them again maybe on the channel and throw them in the Discord as well, so you can see what we were looking at, our options for the Morning Kickaround jersey. Scred Red, USL HQ has to hand over more money to clubs or they're risking another NASL type breakaway. See, that's that's another risk, right? You're right, Scred Red. I mean, remember that the NASL came out of clubs breaking away from the USL because those clubs did not feel like they were supported in the necessary ways. They wanted some independence from USL HQ. And again, with the way that USL is structured, they're not going to get any of those shared revenues that the USL is bringing from broadcast rights or whatever. And so they pulled away, and we had a weird couple of years where U.S. soccer was running a league and NASL was doing their own and pulled off to do their own thing. And ultimately that NASL 2.0 collapsed. All right, let's see. How can USL share revenue when some clubs are eyeing MLS? Yeah, obviously that issue of locking clubs in so you know that they are committed to what you're doing and your future. When you have some of these markets where a new ownership group comes in or somebody wants to invest, or in the case of, say, Indy 11, that team could disappear because the mayor of Indianapolis would rather push for MLS, and if they find somebody else to back that kind of enterprise and MLS suddenly comes calling, there will be no team in Indianapolis. Talk about St. Louis as a place that had a USL team, fairly, I don't know, successful is the right word, but fairly stable, only to have that completely blow up because MLS picked St. Louis. Some of the people involved in St. Louis USL's club, USL's St. Louis's USL club decided they wanted to be part of the MLS team instead, eyeing that bigger prize, and off they go. All right, I think that's it for today's Morning Kickaround. Shout out to Rob. We were Robless today. Hope we will not be Robless on Friday. Support the show, Morning Kickaround, wherever you get your social media. We've got Dot the Map as our campaign for the Ultras. If you get in and give us your location, we'll dot the map with you on Friday. Instagram, Blue Sky, as Jenny is putting on the screen. Become a member, become an Ultra, join the Discord, get your hands on a shirt. We'll work on that jersey for everybody. There is a special MK Ultra t-shirt that only MK Ultras can get. So if you want to get your hands on that, jump in there as well. Check out the store. I'll share the secret link for MK Ultras again on the YouTube channel. I'm sure I'm missing like a billion things. But I do want to thank everybody for their support of the show. Got some big things in the works. We're planning a trip to Rhode Island. That is coming together. There may be potential other trips on the calendar in 2026 as we celebrate the World Cup in American soccer. So thank you very much. And what does Rob say? Until next time, enjoy your soccer.